Hi, here we are.
Hi, Tony. Good evening. How are you?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I think we can wait just a couple of minutes in order to let everybody get in touch with our
Yeah.
with our broadcasting. Is it cold there in Berlin today or not?
It is freezing. It was super sunny, but it was really, really cold. So, yeah, winter's coming. Winter's coming.
Winter's winter's coming. Winter's coming, and and the new lockdown started yesterday. No?
It started on Monday. It's actually kind of a light lockdown. So, compared to other countries, it's not as bad, but it's restaurants are closed, bars are closed. So, it's a little bit quiet on the street, but it's comparably low compared to other countries. So, it's a light lockdown, but it is, I mean,
It, no.
people are not clubbing or anything. So, no.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's a second wave. We're facing Europe and Brazil. We're still in the first wave, as you know, but some people is already on the streets already.
Right.
Some people are, as I am, in quarantine.
I
So
know, bummer. You're in quarantine.
yeah, yeah.
Bummer.
I'm,
Nice.
our teachers are in quarantine yet. Leo, for example, is also in quarantine in London, and so we're trying to get in touch as less as possible, as few as
Right.
possible, so we can keep away from the virus.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, but the vaccine is coming anyway. Now in Brazil, we have two vaccines getting developed. The one in São Paulo with the Chinese company, and another in Rio de Janeiro with the Oxford. It's the Oxford vaccine.
Oh, really? Okay.
So well, I think we're just about to have some good news in a few weeks.
Let's hope so. Let's hope
Yeah.
so.
Well, I think we can start now.
Sure, let's do it. Let's start.
Great. Uh, First of all, Tony, it's a pleasure for us to have you here. Just to introduce you for the people who is coming to this live conversation. This live conversation is gonna take place in English today because we have this lovely person who is Tony. He's a representative for degree programs for ESMT. If anybody knows, ESMT is just the best business schools in Germany. So ESMT has a very interesting story, but I won't tell you about that. I'll let Tony tell you about that. And for me, it's a pleasure to have Tony here and to have SMT here because I studied law in Brazil and also studied law in Munich. Okay, Munich has a little bit of competition with Berlin. It's kind of a joke that they make, but Berlin is a really lovely city, and I'm sure today, Tony, you'll let you know more about the city, more about the SMT, and how you Brazilians, and not only Brazilians, I think everybody who is watching us can have a possibility to get inside, to get accepted in this wonderful business school placed in Berlin. So, well, Tony, please, can you introduce yourself? Tell a little bit more about you. Tell a little bit more about ESMT as well. So, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's actually funny because my last trip for ESMT was to Brazil. So the last trip I came back from before COVID was, I came back from Sao Paulo in March. And then ever since, we haven't been traveling anymore. Everything has happened online like it has now. But yeah, I'm Tony. I work for ESMT Berlin, the degrees department for 1 year now, but I've been with ESMT before already. I have been working at the executive education department before. So that means that I have quite a good overview of all the offers that ESMT has as a school. So we have both seminars and executive education programs, but also degree programs such as the MBA programs. ESMT Berlin is a school that has been founded by businesses. And because of that, we're very strongly connected to the industry and strongly connected to companies. I'll be happy to touch upon this one a little bit more in just a bit. I myself, I'm very fortunate to be living in Berlin because it's I'm not sure if any of you has been lucky enough to already travel to Berlin, but it's such an international and such a vibrant city that it's just so much fun to be there. And the same is true for ESMT as a school, because there's such a diversity of people, both in terms of nationality, but also in terms of their backgrounds, that there's just so much interesting energy going on there. So people have great ideas, people work together, people collaborate, and it's just a great place to be for both students and staff as myself. So not only for the city and for its famous nightlife, but also for everything else, Berlin is a great place to be. So I'd be happy to be chatting about the city and about the business school in the next time for, like, I'm not sure how much we have, like half an hour or something, so, or maybe 1 hour. So I'd be happy to take whatever questions you may have, and be it about the school, be it about content, be it about the city. Today should really be the time for you to ask all the questions you have, because there's one time where I'm here and I can answer everything like live. So don't be afraid. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So it's more questions to me.
I'm sure this is just the first opportunity we have to talk with you here, and sure we have following opportunities in the future. But talking about what students we usually come here to us, and they usually ask us in our consulting programs, in our test prep programs. They usually ask us about business schools, about career. For sure, MBA is about career, no? Looking for what ESMT nowadays delivers for its students. What do you think is the biggest differential of ESMT in terms of careers? What SMT gives to students that they usually have as let's say, unique selling points for themselves when they go to the market? What do you think are these USP that ESMT give to their students?
Yes, good question. So in general, it's always, whenever you think of business schools, of course, you think of consultants and you think of all those big name companies, which are, of course, companies where a lot of our graduates hope to land jobs. And for most of them who want this, they can also reach this goal. However, something that's very exciting about ESMT Berlin is the fact that we have such a strong network to startups as well, to the whole entrepreneurship scene, that this whole spirit, like this whole startup spirit, is deeply enrooted in the programs and in the school as well. So what it means is that after graduation, our graduates, they're ready for really anything. So they're ready for big multinational companies, they're ready for NGOs, they're ready for startups, they're ready for family businesses. I think that's what makes it really interesting, that just because you're at the business school, it doesn't mean that you're ending up in the finance sector, or that you end up in the consulting sector. If you really want to go towards entrepreneurship, for example, if you want to become a founder and found your own company, that's very much possible as well. And Berlin is a great place for that, because it's also considered sometimes like the Silicon Valley of Europe. And I think it's very much true, because there's such a big scene there, and it's such a social collaborative spirit in the city that even if you don't really end up founding your own company, those are some qualities that are so nice to have also for teamwork in general, no matter what company you end up with. So what I think is the big selling point of ESMT Berlin is that you get a big variety of opportunities afterwards. So big companies, small companies, tech jobs or traditional jobs, whatever. And I think it's this agility that our graduates have afterwards that makes them to very special contenders for a great career afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, for sure. Brazilians are known for we in Brazil, we are really entrepreneurial, because sometimes that's what I usually say to the students. Okay, with an MBA, you can not only find a good opportunity, but you can also create good opportunities in economic science. Now, so well, talking about a little bit more about entrepreneurship. It's a thing that usually students come to us asking, okay, I'd like to be an entrepreneur, and I'd like to make an MBA to be a better entrepreneur. You know, what do you think that this student, when this student comes inside, get accepted by the SMT, can do during the program in order to enhance all these capabilities that you make this a better entrepreneur?
Yeah. So first of all, there's, of course, it's kind of the obvious ones. There's all those courses that you can take for entrepreneurship. And for example, in our full-time MBA, there's 3 specialization tracks, one of them being innovation entrepreneurship. And there you actually learn all the basics, all the foundations that you need to dive deeper into entrepreneurship. And since ESMT Berlin was founded by businesses, I already mentioned it beforehand, for us, it's very important that you learn by doing. So for example, there are projects where you get to actually found your own company together with your peers. So it's the so-called startup challenge where you get to, together with, let's say, I think it's up to 5 or 6 classmates, you're gonna get together, you're gonna think about an idea, you're gonna think about a product, and then you actually running throughout this whole journey from the first idea throughout how does this work, who actually does this product serve, up to how do we look for funding. In the very end, this product or service or whatever is presented to a bigger crowd, and then in the end, during the startup challenge, there's always one winner. So there's actually also the incentive of being like the master founder of the big group. And actually all the faculty who are the judges in those challenges, they've all been in the field of entrepreneurship. So they've not just learned out of books, but they've actually been there, they've done that. So they really know what's important in the startup scene. Besides that, because we're obviously talking about a kind of safe space and a safe surrounding where you're in a theoretical field of entrepreneurship, but at the same time, we always have career fairs as well, where we invite a lot of startups, so you can talk to actual founders in Berlin and Germany and even beyond that. There you can also network, you can learn about how it has been for them to just get yourself out there and just take the risk to found something. And in addition to that, since ESMT Berlin is a rather smaller business school compared to other ones, there's a lot you can also do besides the study. So that means that, for example, we have a startup club as well. We have a lot of clubs and organizations. And there's so many things you can do. There's so much potential to found your own club as well. For example, we've had like an agriculture club where now they're thinking about building greenhouses in the ESMT garden. And why not integrate your first startup idea in the form of a student club? It's very much possible as well. And we're very happy that there's so many great ideas there, be it in the clubs, be it during the startup challenge, or be it also in general, because approximately 10% of our graduates actually, after graduation of the MBA, they go out and then they found their own startups. There's so much ideas there that it's a really nice experience for us as well to just be part of the journey, to see that everybody kind of finds their niche, be it only doing the studies in the club, be it doing the startup challenge, be it afterwards and beyond in an actual startup. So entrepreneurship is really everywhere and deeply rooted in the whole culture of the school, I'd say.
Oh, great. I didn't mention, but I am the financial director of our Wirtschaftsunion here in São Paulo. Oh. Yeah. And for us as a Chamber of Commerce, it's really important to get the industries and German firms all together, because I don't know if you know who is watching us, but in Germany you have this culture of the Verein, the old association.
Right.
So really important, and it's a really cultural thing from Germany and for Japan too. Who Japan and Germany has this connection because of this Verein Kultur, as we usually say. And it's really great to hear that ESMT help students to and promote this culture to the world. So
definitely, yeah.
Great. And well, Tony, in the sense, one thing that you usually see in the SMT, as you were talking about this point, and I think it's really important to clarify to the students that the SMT was founded by 25 German companies, 25 companies who decided to get together and to found a business school in order to promote the cultural points for students. And also, yes, it's a very international school. No, we have points that ESMT has 90% of the students come from abroad. So are international students, because come from abroad in Germany is a word that we usually don't like to say, but Tell a little bit more about how this connection with the German industry and the German companies who founded the ESMT usually help students to improve their career and to improve their knowledge in this business sense.
Yes. So as you just mentioned, it all started with those big companies who founded ESMT Berlin. Of course, nowadays this whole picture has shifted a bit in that sense that, of course, we have enriched our profile, so to say. There have been new startups that have been added themselves to our big network, and it's been, of course, growing. However, our founding companies are still very dear to us, and we still have really great connections to them. Oftentimes, and that's one thing that I want to stress right from the start, just because we have had those founding companies, it doesn't mean that every graduate automatically has to end up working for those companies. That's not the case. What it means more is that we have all the expertise from all those companies, so we really know what it is out there in the field. We're not just teaching what's written somewhere in some books, but we're actually walking the talk, basically. So all our faculty as well, they've been out there in the field. They have been working for a lot of those companies that have been our founding companies. And that's also the great thing about their teaching style. So often, if you're sitting in a class at ESMT Berlin, that doesn't mean that you can just sit there and just fall asleep and just listen halfway, but there you actually have to contribute. You're actually being asked to actively contribute to the whole class. There's a lot of projects, there's a lot of learning by doing going on. And up to this date, our career services team always invites a whole round of big companies to our career fairs where our students have the option to network with them, to have interview sessions, to even have their CV looked at. And while there's still, of course, all the founding companies who often present themselves there, we have enlarged this whole portfolio with a lot of different companies. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, startup scene, for example, NGOs, and so forth. However, this whole approach of learning by doing is still the same as it has been when ESMT was founded. So it's important for us that we really teach our students what's happening out there right now. It's not about something that wasn't a case study 5 years ago, but it's really about the industry right now, about what companies are doing. And for example, also in like the last third of the MBA, of the full-time MBA program, for example, there is a consulting project where our students get to work with real companies in Berlin. Those can come from all industries and from no matter where, but we really want our students to act as consultants even before they have graduated. We want them to apply everything that they have learned and to struggle with real-time problems, because it doesn't really serve a lot of purpose to just talk about something in theory, but it's really important to get yourself out there, to go on the field and to solve problems that are existing in this very moment. And we're very happy to always, from year to year, to have new companies adding to our portfolio for this kind of challenge, for this kind of consulting project. And just the same, it's always nice as well to see those founding companies back on campus. And we've had them also, we often see them, for example, in our seminars for executive education. And it's always nice as well to see like this whole circle of having students go to those companies for the internships, and then they meet alumni from earlier years, earlier cohorts of ESMT Berlin, and then they basically already have something in common because of the alumni network of ESMT Berlin. And oftentimes it's also employees from a certain company who come back to campus in order to hire interns or to kind of look for interns for their company. So actually students also benefit from the fact that students have been doing this in the past already. So even if they've never really been in touch with this company, just for the sheer fact of being with ESMT Berlin and being part of this alumni network and being part of the student network, that can already be a step into the door as well for one of those companies.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. I have an uncle who is a physician. He always says that, okay, there are things that you can read in the books and understand it greatly. But there are some cases, some things that if you don't go to the surgery room and watch another surgery, during the surgery, you won't learn about it. So, yeah. So this is very, I think the same thing can be applied here for business.
Totally.
Because you can read a lot of books, you can read a lot of cases, but there are some things that if you don't talk with someone from the industry or someone from the company who has a problem, and problems nowadays are getting transformed more fast and faster. So
Totally.
if you don't get in touch with these people, you won't know. You lose a lot of time until you get in, familiarize in the books and so on and so forth. So it's amazing to have all this contact that the ESMT promotes to the students, so they can sometimes get information before they come to the books.
Totally. And I want to stress one more thing, that just because our faculty, they're all very experienced and seasoned in the field, that doesn't mean that they're not trained in theory at all. So that's not the case. They are very practice oriented, but they also have other foundation for the theory part. So it's basically the best of both worlds in there. It's
well, no, that's the point, because when you have the two things coming out together, so well, I think we're just facing why ESMT is just the best business school in Germany. It's not for free, okay, for sure. And you mentioned a really important point, that usually students come to us and they ask about business school. Okay, because we all know why MBA is the most famous graduate program in the world, is because MBA has a really practical impact in the career of the professionals. And at this point comes through career, and because they make an MBA and afterwards they ask themselves before joining the MBA, okay, what I'm gonna do to get introduced in the market. And you mentioned about the career center. Please, Tony, can you explain a little bit more? How is the work of the career center, getting in touch with the students and making connections between the students and the market, in order to not only get in touch with, okay, we have here 25 companies who have a better connection, can we say, but ESMT has connections with companies not only in Germany, but around the world. Wow. So how can the career center help these students to get inside, to get accepted in the market after getting accepted in the MBA?
Right. I mean, of course, I already mentioned that our career services team always organizes career fairs in different companies on campus. However, of course, that alone doesn't really suffice. So even if you have a lot of students there, you have a lot of companies there, that's no guarantee for anything. It doesn't mean that automatically just like, poof, you're going to have a job. That's not how it happens. Because of that, our career services team actually helps our students from day one with one-to-one coaching. So for us, it's really important that it's not just one big group session where everybody sits in there and they get some basic points about how to write a CV or anything. It doesn't make any sense, because at this point, we all know how to write a CV. It's important for us that every MBA student, and this is completely individual, because one MBA student and another one, they may have had this similar background in terms of studies and work, but maybe they want to go somewhere totally different in the future. Maybe they have totally different life goals. And because of that, it's important for us that those students actually get very individual one-to-one coaching. And for that, we have actually career coaches as well as part of the career services team. So that means they're actually working together with the students on the career path. So for them to kind of find out not only where people can go, but also how to get there. So for example, there are those kind of students who are enrolled in ESMT Berlin and they know exactly where they want to be, where they want to go, and they know what to achieve. Of course, that's somewhat easier for the coaches, but they still have a lot for them to help them with. However, there's just as many students who just know that they kind of want to change something. They want to change either the industry, they want to change the country, they want to change a position or whatever. However, for them, it's kind of difficult to really to really know what to change in particular and what to change in detail. So, and our career coaches can help them just as much as they help this first person I just described. And because of that, we not only have those career fairs that career services organizes, but we have interview sessions where we actually do little tryouts of interviews, where we exactly teach them how to sell yourself, what are some do's and don'ts, how to really do it. So not only to teach them some, it's not just to teach them some certain sentences or phrases or whatever, but it's really for them to be very comfortable, and not just comfortable, but also to be to not be afraid to get themselves out there, because they are there for a reason. They have achieved something. They have the motivation to do something, and we really want to make sure that all our students are proud enough to go out there and to really go for their dreams. As cheesy as it sounds, but it's really how it is. And you want to make sure that they all know exactly what they have to do in order to reach their goals. And so there's interview sessions, there's CV sessions. During those career fairs, also what happens is that we always bring the CVs before and always to the companies, and companies can actually pick some students and they can decide whether they want to have interviews with this and this person. So there's actually real offers that can result in those kind of talks. And as I formally mentioned already, I mean, this whole network, and you just touched upon it as well, the network of the careers team, for example, within Berlin, but also beyond, within Germany and even across borders, is very, very helpful for somebody who's just either starting off in a career who just wants to take a different path. And the same is true for the alumni network. So it always helps to meet somebody over drinks during an alumni event instead of just reaching out to somebody because you feel like he's a recruiter or whatever. So it's always easier to go through the other route because you already have something in common, like ESMT Berlin as a university where you both graduated.
Oh, well, great. I think this is because we need to see one thing. MBA, you learn a lot of about business, how to solve problems. Okay, right. But sometimes talking about career itself, you need to discover more about yourself. It's not that easy. And Career Center many times is the place where you find what to do and how to do to discover more about yourself in order to put in connection what you want to do in your career with what you're learning about business. Right. So, because that's what we usually say here, not only people usually buy the person before the product.
Yeah.
It's something that my grandpa told me once, and I think it's true because and service usually helps the students to get better about themselves, so they can feel more comfortable. They can have more confidence about their abilities and their skills, so they can use what they learn in the program, and they can apply it better because they know what they're doing and why they are doing that.
Exactly. And what's also important, what I just want to stress again, is that I mean, our MBA program, our full-time MBA program is of a duration of 1 year. However, the job hunt doesn't only start like 3 months before graduation or even after, whatever, but we are really aware and we really want to make sure that our students also know that the career process or the development for afterwards, it already starts on day one of your MBA. So it's important to, I mean, it's never too early to look for the next step. And we want to make sure that all our MBA students know exactly where the opportunities are and where they can go after graduation, because we don't want anybody being there and thinking, oh, I don't really know, I don't feel ready. And we want to make sure that they are all ready to move on to the next phase of their life.
Yeah, that's great, because sometimes the students, they need something to push them and not to make them move on. Okay, that's great. Right. And Tony, ESMT for sure, it's the European School of Management and Technology. We're talking about management and about technology. What do you think that ESMT helps students to get more in touch with the digital transformation we're facing nowadays in the economy? And how do you think ESMT are proposing things in order to get these students the leadership of this digital transformation process?
Yeah. So in general, I mean, it's kind of placed together with Berlin being a startup hub, but also with Berlin being a center of innovation. So everything it's technology and it's innovation, that's often also something that's happening in and throughout Berlin. A lot of our faculty members are also experts in this field. So we have a few courses that some are elective, some are mandatory courses that are going towards the field of design thinking, machine learning, and so forth. Fintech as well, I think. And so that means that ESMT Berlin is also not afraid of really diving deeper into some formally maybe new waves, but typical Berlin, jumping right on the first train, so to say, and ESMT Berlin is no exception in that. We really want to make sure that our students are always on the right on this first wave as well. We want to make sure that as soon as one of our faculty members got to know something new or has like a new research out there, that's going right to the students as well. Because I mean, we all know with technology, there's something that's really new today will already be maybe obsolete tomorrow. So it's always important to keep people on their toes. And there again, because you also just mentioned the topic of leadership, it's kind of difficult to put management and technology and leadership and so forth, to put them all individual, because they're all actually playing together for us. So they're all, you basically never really just learning one thing, and then you're not really going to like a technology class and then to leadership class. But it's important for us to have it all holistically in this whole program. And it's also the reason why this whole program of 1 year, which on the one hand will pass by super quickly because it's a great experience and it's Berlin and it's just a really fun time. At the same time, it's a very intense year because there's so many things where your mind will be basically blown away by so much input and so much stuff you kind of have to solve yourself. Learning by doing, we already mentioned it a few times tonight already. So it's important for our students to kind of go this route guided by our faculty, but they're basically putting in all the work and all the efforts themselves and by learning together. And then again, I mean, I've not even touched upon the fact that our students are a very diverse group, and of course you can always talk about all the international background, but it's more about all the professions they're coming from. So we have people who have had a lot of touch points with management. We have engineers, we have people who are very much into technology, but how about somebody who has maybe studied something with social sciences before, and he now wants to get more into management, more towards technology? For them, it's going to be somewhat trickier, and that's then very important to collaborate and to learn together. It's not just about what the teacher or the faculty tells you, but it's also about what your classmates can tell you, what your classmates can bring to the table, what they have experienced in their life. And there's always something that everybody can bring to the table. It's really important for us that you don't think, I'm not really sure if I'm good for this program because maybe I've never had any exchange with a lot of technology topics, or maybe I'm not the biggest analyst, but then maybe you're a very strong contender in a different topic, and that's something that other people don't have. So this collaboration point is also very important for us. And I guess that plays together with the leadership part as well, because there's kind of a difference between leading and being led and also to just being bossy. That's totally not the same thing. So it's important to also know when you are a leader in a group, maybe in a topic or doing a project where you're kind of on when it's your forte. And also sometimes maybe it's okay to be led as well. I mean, in the end, all our students want to become leaders in a certain way, but it doesn't mean that you always have to be like the loudest or the strongest or whatever. Our students quickly have to learn, they always learn that they have a very special quality that they bring to the table, and that they can also teach others. And so I think, and just to go back to your initial question of leadership, technology, and management, it always just sounds so generic as like subject like this, but it's actually a whole holistic program. And I think it's also what makes the program and the whole school so great.
Well, yeah, as you said, no, leadership is not about talking, but influencing people, influentiating people, and influencing is not about only talking, but also about give a step back and let people do
exactly
what you influenced them to do. No,
right.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. Usually people think has a certain age about leadership. And when you get in the business school and you get in touch with real leaders, you face that, okay, leadership is a thing a little bit different from what many times people think leadership is. And well, Tony, you talked about a really interesting point from the ESMT, that the students, they pick up together and they study together and they share informations. This is the magic of the MBA, you know, about connections. And you talked about connections of people. You talked about networking. Now, how do you think the when a student makes a decision to go to the ESMT, what kind of connections and networking events and networking opportunity outside of the great opportunities to share this information, because it's already clear for us that the ESMT is a hub for information and knowledge, but in a more concrete way, how can these students face opportunities for connections and network during the program at the ESMT?
Yes. So first of all, of course, you can imagine when there's roughly around 50 students coming together on campus in January, which is always the month when the program kicks off. For us as staff members who are always very excited for this one day, it's always very sweet to see how all those 50 professionals who are like very good in their fields and who are like very confident and so forth, then sit there and they're a little bit worried, of course, because they've just started a new life. They're just starting a new adventure and they don't know anybody yet and they are in a foreign country. So it's a little bit scary for them. And then it's very nice to see how soon and how quickly they all cling together and how they all become very friendly with each other very soon. Because no matter whether they've been the best engineer in the company or whatever, at this very moment, they're all in the same shoe. They all have to kind of start all over in a new country. And there's really no chance, no time to be like too proud to talk to other people. So you become very open-minded in general because you're living and you're working and studying together with so many people from different cultures. So you kind of have to be open-minded, which is also kind of what Berlin as a city is itself. And of course, the networking already starts on day one when you get together, 50 students and so forth from all different cultures, different backgrounds. Then, of course, we don't just have the MBA program on campus, but we also have the EMBA. We sometimes have the part-time MBA, the masters on campus. And because we are rather one of the smaller business schools in terms of program sizes, that means that at some point you kind of know people's faces. So you also, in general, it's a very friendly atmosphere, also between staff and students. So I run around campus and I see students, I'm going to greet them. So this network is already very precious and very large because it also gives you a certain head start in Berlin as a city, because at some point you're going to run across those people in Berlin. And who knows, maybe one of those people who have an EMBA student that you sat next to during lunch works at a certain company and you meet again at one of our open house events, and then you talk to them, and then that's how networking can work as well. But maybe not only on the professional side, but also on the personal side. I mean, of course, we want our students as well to not always just think about business networking, but also to enrich the personal experience of this 1 year. I mean, 1 year can be really long and can be really short at the same time. And we also want them to make really great memories and to experience the country, experience the city together as a group. And especially the MBAs, since they're all from such exotic places around the world, they really want to make the most out of this 1 year. And there's always so many great group photos that reach us where they've been exploring Berlin, where they've been exploring Munich or other cities and other regions in Germany. They go traveling and so forth. And of course, you can imagine some of them invite friends, invite families from their home, and then you meet with them as well. So it's this massive melting pot of, it kind of feels like, for me, it always feels like I'm abroad, although I'm in my own country. But whenever I walk around ESMT, it's such an intercultural experience that I always feel like I'm somewhere abroad because everybody brings their very special culture to the table. And so it's a very respectful place. It's a very open-minded place. also throughout the admission process, of course, we look at things like scores and CVs and so forth, but we also look at what kind of person you are. We want to make sure that there's not a lot of, or ideally not a single superstar who just wants to succeed all by himself or all by herself. We want to make sure that we find team players. We want to find people who want to work in teams, but who also want to live and study side by side as a team and collaborate. So I think it's not only networking in the sheer fact of meeting other people, but also in terms of gaining the soft skills to actually be open-minded for other cultures. Because you can imagine, if we're talking about a city like Berlin, where you have people of all sexual preferences, people of all styles, and there's even already from looks, they're all sometimes like, oh, what's that? But at some point, after a certain amount of time you spent in Berlin, like, that's normal, it's just Berlin. So it's kind of nice to also make people more sensitive to this part. So that's also my very personal opinion, that everybody should at least once in a lifetime come to Berlin to live here in order to actually get the sensitivity to make sure that this person may look strange or may look weird and foreign, but maybe you're not so different after all.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because learning from different is a major point, because some solutions for the problems we face can be found in other cultures when they cannot be found in our culture or in our place. So when you are open-minded, sometimes you can make that little special thing that usually people say, to think outside the box. No. So well, it's in Berlin for sure. It's amazing place. It's amazing city. So cultural, so open-minded. There's so many different. I usually say, I'm afraid to tell that, but sometimes I think, I was talking with an American friend these days, and I told him, okay, sometimes I think that Berlin is not Germany, because because it's so colorful and so different, and have so many things all together, that it's a global city
Totally.
And
for me, it's sometimes difficult for me during those kind of chats to not become too enthusiastic, because I'm not from Berlin. I just moved here 2 years ago, but I'm so much in love with the city that it's always difficult for me not to become totally head over heels about it, because I just love the city. And I always, whenever, for example, when I did those fairs for ESMT, for example, in South America back in March, whenever you say to people that you're from Berlin, everybody has such a reaction to it, no matter if they've been there or not. But there's such a reputation that comes with the city, and there's so many, you already expect something just from hearing the name. Even if you've never been there, there's so many ideas that come to your head. And it's always so great to look at people and tell them, yeah, I live in Berlin. This reaction is always amazing. And they've either been there and they tell me a fun story about when they were there, or they tell me, oh, I'm dying to go there, I really want to go. And it's totally for a good reason. I mean, it's a great place.
Well, yeah. Sometimes, and you mentioned an interesting point about the travels and things. Usually, candidates to an MBA make together after the classes.
Yes.
We are, when you talk about business, you talk about human things, not only money and profit. We talk about humanity also. And I get really sad when I read in Brazil, people from our industry, from our telling, okay, MBA is not a time to travel. MBA is not trying to have fun. MBA is about work. MBA is about career. Hey, what's up? MBA is about making things better. No, MBA is about innovations. MBA is about thinking. MBA is not a square thing that okay, and I think that's the main point about an MBA. As I mentioned, to know and to learn how to think outside the box. No, and talking about it, Tony, you mentioned about the MBA and the MBA. We have a little difference here. Usually read and talk that okay, MBA and MBA has almost no difference outside, or unless the point that the students have more or less experience, and so on and so forth. In your opinion, the opinion that you see the SMT, what do you think is the major difference between the EMBA and the MBA program, the full-time MBA in this case, that you have there at the SMT?
Yes. So of course, you already just mentioned it, that there's the slight difference that our executive MBA students have somewhat more experience in their jobs and they strive towards more leadership. However, the same can be true for MBA students as well. So just because you're an MBA student, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily less experienced. I mean, we always ask for a minimum of 3 years of experience for the MBA, but we've also have had students, and we currently in our current cohort have students who have 10 years and beyond. So that's maybe a theoretical difference, but not really. What's more different is the motivation to study this or this program. So for example, while the EMBA, the executive MBA, is more the opportunity for someone to stay within the current company and to go towards a more senior leadership position. So basically you want to develop within a company, you want to maybe enlarge your current role in current position, you grow, you want to get maybe a wider horizon as well of your position and your role. And so you stay with this company, you're studying part-time because our executive MBA is a part-time program. And then after 2 years, you will have had some modules in Germany, you will have had some international modules as well, because those exist as well. However, during this whole time, you will also have continued to work. And then in the end, you're even going to have a final project together with your employer in order to maybe solve a problem that has existed with your company for a long time and you want to solve it. Mm-hmm. MBA students, on the other hand, their motivation to study is a totally different one. So they either already experts in a certain field or they have gained some management skills, but they feel kind of stuck in where they are. They feel like, maybe I kind of like what I did, but I don't really see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I need something else. I need to get a kickstart to something new. I need to jumpstart a new adventure. And so what they basically do is that they quit their job. They just leave their life behind, basically. They relocate to Berlin, and they have, as the name entails, a new full-time experience with the MBA in Berlin in order to either, in case they're experts in a certain field, they gain management skills in addition to that, or the other way around. They have already like a general business understanding, but they want to specialize more in innovation, entrepreneurship, or more towards analytics, in order to then either start a new life in a different country, for example, Germany or somewhere else in Europe, or in a new position, or in a new industry, or even all of the above. Why not get from a Brazilian engineer to a German founder of a new health startup? Who knows? I mean, it's all possible, and that's often the big difference between the two. I mean, of course, there's some more like soft facts that are different, like the length of the programs, and then of course that the EMBA only has like a few residential modules. But overall, the motivation of the two programs is very different, even though a lot of the content, like innovation or leadership, of course, you will see things that exist in both programs. But the pure motivation of why somebody wants to do this, because in the end, the objective is something totally different than it was before. That's the main difference between the two programs, the motivation to do the program.
Oh, great. And about the requirements, Tony?
Yes.
That's a question that usually you students make, and you probably know that GMAT is a little bit challenging for the students. So in this sense, what do you think are the difference, the main difference? What are the main difference between the requirements for an MBA and for the EMBA in terms of, for example, for the GMAT and for the application itself? And what do you think that are the difference between these two programs about their requirements?
Right. So there's a few requirements that are very similar. For example, we have reference letters that you ask from both. Then, yeah, there's like the formal application that just needs to be handed in. However, while for the MBA program, the full-time MBA, the GMAT is very important. For the EMBAs, it's a little bit different because we, with some higher experience and some more senior experience, there's no real need to prove your analytical skills or whatever. So we always want to make sure that while MBA students who may have only worked for 3 years, they need some kind of proven record of their skills and of what they can do. However, for EMBA students, they will look more on where has their path led them. And then we also have our very university-own test that we give our EMBA students. So there's the ESMT test basically that we let them do. And the same is true for the English proficiency test. So for the MBAs, they need to hand in the TOEFL or IELTS test. For the EMBA students, we are always like a little on the fence about it because we actually trust them that they are responsible enough to evaluate themselves whether they have the best English skills or not. And in the end, you can always tell during the interview anyway, because for both the MBA and also for the EMBA, there's always an interview happening with the admissions committee. And there as well, it's not really about testing somebody, it's more about getting to know somebody. So while the interview is, of course, something important and should be seen as like a job interview, it's still also a chance to ask questions. It's really a chance to show who you are. It's also a chance for us to get to know you as a candidate, because sometimes me and my colleagues will talk to candidates and then maybe somebody from the admissions team. But there's also sometimes the chance that maybe the candidate has watched some webinars and didn't have any questions, didn't schedule any interviews beforehand. And so maybe this is the first time that the interviewee will talk to us. And so then for both sides, actually, for ESMT, but also for the candidate, this is really the chance to ask questions, to get to know each other, to also kind of see whether the vibe of the school fits maybe the candidate's expectations, and the other way around too. And overall, I mean, the admission requirements, it's always such an interesting topic, because doing the fairs and also doing those webinars like we're doing right now, it's always, you're talking about Fun Berlin and so forth, and then always when it's about requirements, you can already tell that all the students or all the candidates are like, requirements, it's such a scary topic. Yeah. But candidates really should make sure, or should be aware of the fact that we're just humans just as much as our candidates, and we're not going to look at your GMAT score and going to say, it's only 630 and not 640, but we're looking at the application holistically. We're looking at the profile just as much as if we're having a candidate in front of us. We're not just looking at his or her leg, but we're looking at the whole person. We really want to know the whole story. So if there's anything that you're maybe not so proud of your CV or of your GMAT score or whatever, don't be afraid to tell us if anything happened. For example, if you worked in your family business and you did overtime for the last 6 months, and because of that, you had trouble learning for the GMAT, then tell us your story. We're all humans and we all understand this, and it's very honorable if you then put in all these hours for your family business. But we cannot know this unless you tell us your story. So be your authentic self. Don't try to be someone that you think you should be for a business school, because maybe that gets you in somewhere else, but maybe it doesn't get you in ESMT Berlin. It would be really a pity if you would not get in because you pretended to be somebody that you're not. So really don't be afraid, but also don't put it too much on. I mean, it's also not just a very casual talk. It's still an interview. So do your homework, learn about the school, have the requirements ready. And also what's important, I mean, it's a little bit too late if you check your requirements after you've already handed them in. There is no reason not to reach out beforehand. We're always happy to help out with, like what we're doing right now, for example. We're always happy to answer questions. There is no such thing as a stupid question. If you have anything that you want to know about requirements, you can ask us 100 times before in order to really have your application ready by the set date. So if you're really motivated for an MBA or an EMBA, there is no reason whatsoever why you shouldn't be able to hand in the best application possible from a personal point of view, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, sometimes what we need to understand is that MBA is about transformation, and the candidates want to know what kind of the transformation they want to be in the future, and the requirements are where the basis, no, so they can use this opportunity really for a transformation, no. And sometimes it can just get us scared of all those things. It's good to hear that from you. We have a little question here talking about
Yes.
if the social skill assessment can be used in place of GMAT. Do you think that GMAT can be changed by any other kind of test in the sense as an analytical assessment?
So as an alternative for the GMAT, we do have the GRE test as well for our MBA students. And then actually there is for the EMBA students, there is the ESMT specific test. And in general, what I also want to mention about, since we're talking about tests and about waiving them or maybe alternatives and so forth, we are very much aware that, we don't have to point out the elephant in the room, but during these days, sometimes test centers are closed and we're in lockdown and so forth. So there are certain requirements or certain things that need to be submitted, like the GMAT score or like the GRE score and so forth, that can also be submitted at a later point. So just because there's a deadline, it doesn't mean that you need to hand it in definitely by this date, otherwise you're out. Not at all. Again, we're all humans, we know what's going on. It's a crazy time for everybody. So no matter if you take the GMAT, the GRE, or if you for the EMBA take our essential skill test, talk to us, let us know that you're working on it. Don't hand it in like 1 year later, but hand it in at some point.
We're just back. Great.
You're back.
Tony, you were talking about this. I think that the main point that you can bring here about the SMTs is about treating humans as humans, because when sometimes, and this is the point that we're facing now in this transformation of the job and how we can guarantee psychological security for workers, and after all the situation we're living in these crazy times from coronavirus. What ESMT is doing in order to make something more, not easier, but more flexible, we can say, in order to help students and in order to help candidates to face the challenge we're facing in the whole world, and also get the opportunity to study at the SMT.
Yes. So of course, I mentioned it earlier, we always have the MBA class who starts in January, and this year, 2020, in January, a whole new group of roughly 50 students started, and then they had the great first 2 months, and then all of a sudden it hit us, and Corona didn't stop in front of Berlin. And then, all of a sudden, we kind of had to rethink our whole study program, basically, because we do also have other programs like the part-time MBA where 80% is happening online anyway. However, the MBA, the full-time MBA program from the start was always meant to be an on-site program, and to also, to have like teamwork projects going on that are happening all on campus. However, then we knew, okay, there's 2 choices. There's either doing it online or not at all, because we can't just go back to campus if there's a pandemic happening. So actually, thanks to our EdTech team, we were able to transform all of our courses to an online version. So actually, all of our MBA students had to go in front of the screens at home to take some classes from there. However, again, thanks to the fact that we're a rather small business school and that we're roughly only 50 MBA students, our MBA cohort was the first group to come back to campus, actually, because we have such big facilities that it was very easy to kind of spread them out. And by that time, they've already gone into their specialization tracks. I mentioned it briefly earlier. There's 3 tracks that our students can choose. And because of that, there are also, of course, smaller groups in those tracks. And so the MBA class actually was only, I think, in front of their screens on home study for roughly 2 months, I want to say. Of course, this doesn't mean that we just bring everybody back on campus as soon as we can without taking consideration anything that's going out there. We're always in constant exchange with the authorities. However, we also knew that for our MBA class especially, they're here for 1 year, and we really want them to make the most of this experience. And if they're only in front of a screen, that's not very fun. I mean, they're abroad and in Berlin for a reason. So we really did our utmost to be able to get the MBA class first back on campus as soon as it was possible again.
No,
sorry?
No, go on, please.
Yeah, up until today, this is still the case. So they're still on campus, they're doing group work and so forth. However, of course, the good thing is as well, kind of with the timing, we were in a very good place with the pandemic, with the timing, because nowadays we have the consulting project again. So that means they're in very small groups. And this is much easier also to conduct via screen, because there's only so many lectures you can take via Zoom, for example. At some point, it really gets a little difficult for everybody. But everybody involved, the students, just as the faculty and also other program assistants, did a phenomenal job in putting it all together and to keeping up the spirit. And of course, this is something new for all of us, and we really didn't know if this was going to last until the end of the year. But we are very, very optimistic that by next year in January, when the next cohort of MBA students will start, we will again be back on campus. And since now we are also kind of, let's say the first pancake of online classes has happened. So now we really know what to do and how to do things. And we've really become pros of teaching online when we have to. But then again, if we can avoid it, of course, we're always going to go back to campus.
Yes, because as you said, no, this connection, this face-to-face talk brings the magic of the MBA. You know, it's totally learning from the first. No, well. Tony, talk a little bit more about this consulting project. That seems to be an amazing project that the ESMT leads with their students. What do you think are the requirements, or what the students need to do in order to get accepted or to take part of this program? And how or if you can explain 1 or 2 cases which you usually talk about for this consulting program, which you have a little bit more proud of. How can I say that? But that you think are meaningful from this experience that the ESMT is beautifully leading in their MBA programs.
Yeah. So this consulting project I just mentioned, this is kind of like the whole last third of the MBA program. For us, it's important that our students, so kind of the whole journey for them is like lectures and classes in the very beginning all together. They have like the whole basic knowledge in order to get everybody on the same page. Then they go into the specialization tracks in order to learn more about either managerial analytics, strategic leadership, or entrepreneurship and innovation. Afterwards, in a total mix of people, again, they get to, put together in groups. And then they will work together with maybe an engineer, maybe with somebody who is an IT specialist, maybe with somebody who has worked as a chef before, maybe somebody who has a major in art, you don't know. And then maybe you get chosen for a consulting project in, let's say, the health sector. So that means there's not a single student who's really at ease there, but that's also the challenge. We really want to challenge our students to get themselves out of the comfort zone. We want to make sure that doing this consulting project, of course, it would be easy to make sure that every student kind of gets a project in the field where they have worked in before. And then, of course, you can solve it and easy peasy. But let's be honest, it's not how the business world works. You're often getting pushed out of your comfort zone, and then you don't know what to do. You've never been there before. It's an experience that you've never really faced. and then let alone the fact that you're in a foreign country and that you're working together with people from different nationalities as well. So it's kind of struggles or challenges on a lot of different angles. But at the same time, the very exciting part is that it's a real-time problem and a real company. I mentioned this before already. It's not just some theoretical or like something in theory, but it's actual companies that we're working with, and they're really needing our students' help. They're not just being nice and telling us, yeah, sure, you can do whatever, but they're really they're benefiting as much as the students benefit from this experience. They really want consultants to help them with, and it's a student chance to. It's a student's chance to act as consultants while being still in a safe space or in the safe surrounding of a university. So while of course they should really do their best and put all their effort in it, in the worst case, they're not on this €1 million project, so they can't really get fired or anything, but they're making an effort and making an impact while still studying. So that's win-win for everybody involved. And of course, it's not always easy. So for example, last year, I remember that I was also in contact with the MBA students and I kind of checked on their group work. And sometimes it's tricky because you can imagine it's getting very intense when you have to work together in this one group all the time. And then maybe sometimes there's cultural differences that come to the surface, and then it's stressful. And also emotionally, it's kind of towards the end of your whole year in Berlin. So you also kind of have to worry about what comes next. But that makes you grow together even more as a group. And what's kind of nice as well is that at ESMT Berlin, we have so-called study rooms where all of our groups get their very own study room, and then they can work there for 3 hours per day, but they can also work there for 10 hours a day. And sometimes it really looks like it. They're camping in there with all their snacks and I've seen sleeping bags in there. Some people are really dedicated. And it's really nice to always pass there. And then they put the logo of the company in front of the door and they're very proud of it. And it's kind of like friendly competition. They're like working in there and consulting away. And it's very nice to watch. It's very, even as an outsider, as myself, it's very, very cool to see that.
Oh, great. Yes. Also, Einstein said that he wasn't more intelligent than the others. He was just facing problems longer than the others. Projects help students to make them dealing with problems for a longer time, so they can have or they can solve problems faster or have more ability to deal with problems which they will face after the program. And Tony, talk a little bit more about, for example, the timeline, that the students face. Firstly, about the program itself, because it's a concern that every executive or every manager or every leader who is looking for an MBA in order to enhance their careers, that they think, okay, oh my gosh, I need to get out of my company for 1 year. I can't do that. And want to improve their skills. So how is organized the program in order to make students to go to Berlin and learn online, so they can still keep working and get their knowledge, their business skills enhanced with the EMBA program from the ESMT.
Okay, so we're talking about the EMBA again now?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, cool, yeah.
Or the part-time. Yeah. Because I think
you
also have a part-time MBA.
Exactly, yeah, we do.
Because an executive MBA is usually and the part-time MBA, but we also have a part-time MBA.
Yeah.
So we can talk about them both.
I can talk about both, yeah, sure. So basically, I'm guessing time management wise, it's rather similar for the part-time MBA and the executive MBA. First of all, what's important to know is that, of course, it's a big commitment, but you're gonna get a lot out of it. But of course, you have to consider that we've made sure that, for example, for the part-time MBA, all those on-site modules, because there's a few that will happen on-site as well and not just online, will be towards the weekends. So that means there's also a few weekends that you will have to put in to come to campus to study. So that means working during the week, but then also studying on the weekend. But for the executive MBA, it's kind of similar, but then you always have like a whole week every 6 weeks where you come on campus. And in between that, you will still continue working. And throughout this last year, I've talked to a lot of EMBA students and also doing our open houses that we always organize, or nowadays it's virtual open houses. By the way, we have one next week.
Oh,
And then we always dedicate like one day or one session to each program. And then we always invite students and alumni to kind of talk about this very part. So how do you kind of juggle with the time management? I mean, sometimes there's people who have a job, who have the EMBA, who have children, and then you wonder how are they still alive. But they actually, it's very interesting because everybody has their very individual secret. So there are some people who would just work the study always like in the evenings. There's some people who keep, for example, the Sunday open for just studying. And then what's very nice, whenever we have those residential modules for the EMBA, for example, when students come to campus, of course, it's 1 week of studying, but always during the evening, we always make sure that there's also some fun stuff involved. We want to make sure that they don't just come on campus for lectures, but we want to make sure that, okay, maybe there are lectures, but once the clock hits 5 o'clock, the whole cohort is going on a boat ride, or then they're going to have drinks, then they're going to have dinner, because they see each other very rarely, and we want to make sure that they have the same community feeling as the MBA students, for example. They're still a cohort, they're going to graduate together. I mean, they started together, they're doing the whole journey together. So this one time they are together at one place, we want to make sure that they actually have a whole experience together. And they're also very much looking forward to it as well. I mean, it never really happens that they are working and then they're like, ugh, it's again one of those modules in Berlin, but they're more like, yeah, I can't wait. It's again a whole week with my ESMT peers. And then, of course, our faculty, they do very much know that all our students are in full-time jobs. So if there's a student who has to run out for a call or they have to write an important business email, of course, that's totally understandable. I mean, it's the real business world right now. It's not like back in school where somebody was, I don't know, writing a little letter under the bench and then you were kicked out of school. That's not at all how it is. I mean, we're in the real world and we know that our students have real jobs and sometimes there's real consequences hanging on decisions. But there's a lot of students who have successfully managed work, study, family, and then they still had a certain amount of free time as well. And of course, it's a certain commitment and it's gonna be a difficult time and a stressful time. But afterwards, everybody always tells me that it was totally worth it. They're always getting so much out of it. And I'm not just talking about steps in the career, but also personally for themselves. Because not only are you climbing up a career ladder, but you're also kind of evolving as a person. You are going to go somewhere where you've never thought you would go. You're going to reach highs and you're going to reach levels where you thought, wow, I've never thought I would be able to do all this at once. And it's very much possible. And also, for example, it's not like you're going to be studying 24/7 for ESMT Berlin. Of course, it's a lot of work and some people have to put in more work than others, depending on the background. But it is manageable. And a lot of people have graduated before. So that shows you that it is doable if you have the motivation, put in the work. You will still have a life next to it, but it will be a little bit more busy than it was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we usually say to students that come looking for us here to make the inconsistencies to business schools. You need to know what you want to do in the future and how you're going to make how you use the MBA program in order to achieve what you want to have in the future, because otherwise you won't have the motivation to face the challenges.
Yeah, exactly. If you see the goal at the end of the tunnel, it's so much easier if you know exactly what you're doing it for. If you kind of know exactly, you see the light there, you see your objective hanging there, it's so much easier to reach for it than if it's just like, oh, I don't know, I'm just doing it because I thought I should, that's not going to work. But if you have a clear goal there and you kind of see it at the end of the tunnel and you do baby steps and step by step you're going to reach there, that makes it so much easier.
Yes, exactly. That's what we've time to time talk to students about this thing. You need to know what are your goals. That's something we work a lot here in our consultancy program. But anyway, Tony, talking about now the deadlines for the program. Usually know that MBA programs have a first round, a second round, a third round. How these rounds are organized in the case of the ESMT Berlin?
Yeah. So actually for most of our programs, like the EMBA, the part-time MBA, and also the master's program, they all start in autumn. However, the full-time MBA, we always start in January. And because of that, we have a different deadline for this one. And there's actually one last deadline that we are facing soonish, in 1 month before we stop the intake for 2021 in January. So that means normally there's a deadline for students who would need a visa. This is until the beginning of November. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Brazilians don't need one for Germany, if I'm correct. And because of that, since this one's not the case for Brazilians, there is one very important deadline. This is in the beginning of December. I think it's December 4th or 5th. I'm not sure, but it's on our website. And of course, it is a little ambitious to be starting an application or to maybe also be wrapping it up in like 1 month. But it's not impossible. And as I mentioned before, things like the GMAT can also be submitted afterwards. And if you really have the motivation to still get going for next year in January, for January 2021, that's very much possible. I mean, also in terms of housing and everything, we've had students who, I've talked to students on like Zoom chats who'd be like, oh, I'm not sure, I'm looking for 2022. Then I talked to them and then they kind of got they got hooked and told me, you know what, I'm gonna try it out. I'm going to, I mean, you only live once, and 1 year can be a lot of time if you have to wait another year. And I mean, 2020 especially has shown us that you can never plan for much anyway. You kind of sometimes have to just go with your gut feeling and just do what you feel like doing. And if there ever was a city that makes it very easy for people to come here and to kind of start over, it is Berlin. So far, none of our students has had to live on the streets. Everybody has always found something to live at, some housing. So it is very much possible if you have the motivation. If you're stressed and you don't really know where to start with the whole application process, but you really want to get it going, don't be afraid to reach out to us. Don't be afraid to reach out to admissions, reach out to us. All our email addresses are on our website. That's what we're here for. We very much know that this is like the final deadline for our MBAs. And we're also getting ready for a final round of people trying to squeeze the last power together to get the application in. So it is very much possible. However, don't just do it because you feel like you can do it. Do it if you feel like it's the right time for you. If you feel like you're not ready yet, maybe then it's also a wiser decision to wait another year. Or maybe then it's even a wiser decision to look for the EMBA or for the part-time MBA. It's really on an individual basis, but I want to say that if you really want to do the full-time MBA and you feel like you're basically ready, personally, you're basically ready, and also requirement-wise, you have pretty much everything you need, then there really is no need to be waiting another year. I mean, nobody of us gets any younger by the time, so might as well. There's no time like the present.
Yeah, that's the point that we usually say to students. If you understood that MBA, or in this case, or marketing finance, for example, will help you to achieve something you're not achieving alone, well, why, if not now, so when? Then when? Yeah. So the best time to do something is now, because if you don't act, and as we were talking earlier, the practice is what gonna make us a clear idea of what is right and what is wrong. If you just think about just reading theory, you won't know exactly what this thing is gonna work for you. So,
it's always like this, that in the beginning you're always gonna think, oh no, it's not possible. Then you're gonna sleep on it like, it could be possible. And then yeah, it's possible. And then the next time you wake up, you're already sitting in Berlin in an apartment. So it's always possible. It's always possible.
For sure. And Tony, you were talking about, I should ask about it because just to let for the Brazilians know it more clear. Brazilians, so in this case, just let's say in this way, just need to go to Berlin if they are accepted, start the program and request a visa while they are already in Berlin, because Brazil has this flexibility with Germany, isn't it?
Right.
Okay, great. So, well, even for you in Brazil, who is watching us, thinking about to study in a really great business school in the world, you just need to apply to SMT, and we will help you with this application, the whole process with the GMAT, the TOEFL, and everything. You need to get accepted in the SMT, and just need to go.
Just make sure you bring a very warm coat, because in January it's going to be kind of cold.
For sure.
One thing you need to bring.
One thing I'm always amazed about Berlin when I visit Berlin is about people running on the streets with the socks, so thin socks, and they're streets. It's all cold, all full of snow, and then they're just running. Right. Oh my gosh!
True,
yeah. to freeze here inside my coats, but they're running.
In Berlin, we always say that. So because those winters sometimes they feel a little bit long and harsh, but it's always for us. It's the motivation that summer will come, because the summers in Berlin are just amazing. We always know summer is just around the corner, and it's just enough to get you through winter. And then once we hit spring, it's all is perfect again, and then life's good. But sometimes there's like a couple of weeks that can be a little bit rough, but then again, for Brazilian, it might also be very interesting to be in a very cold place where there's snow and everything. So, I mean, why not? So
yes, and to have a time to sit on the grass near the street and and to visit museums.
Oh, totally, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Berlin's. I'm a little suspicious also to talk about Berlin, but well, Anthony, talk a little bit more about the application process. Looking from your side, who usually is talking about to students who want to get accepted in the SMT and so on and so forth. If you could tell to this student or to this candidate who's trying to get accepted at the SMT, what do you usually look for in a candidate that when you find it, you say, okay, this guy, I wanted to study here. Which aspect do you think do you usually look for in a candidate to get accepted there?
That is a great question, because I've gotten this question so often, but often I've gotten this question more in the sense of, am I too old? Am I experienced enough? Is my degree the right one? And it's so funny, because those are totally not the things we look at, not at all. What I've noticed during my interviews with students, and both doing fairs, but also doing like Zoom calls and so forth, is that you can totally tell when somebody is just applying at a whole bunch of business schools, and ESMT is just one part of them, or whether they are actually really familiar with the program and they really feel like that program is for them. You can totally tell, because they've done their homework, they kind of know what the program entails, they have questions, and they're also very intrinsically motivated by things like innovation and like social impact and so forth, which are very important pillars of all the programs at ESMT Berlin. So that's something you can always notice. You can also always tell whether somebody is really motivated. So whether, for example, the first question they ask is, yeah, we would really like to know how I get to, like with the alumni network, how does it work? How do I get to really, how can I put it? For example, if they have very detailed questions about courses or something, and they actually know some names of some classes, for example, or there's other people where the first question is about, yeah, I don't know, when they just have like really random and generic questions that could be applicable to every other school, then you know, okay, maybe they wouldn't mind studying at ESMT Berlin, but it's also not like they really, really want to go there. And what we're also very much looking for is diversity. And that's kind of a tricky one because you can, of course, only be diverse in comparison to other candidates. But then again, it's very important to just be yourself. I mean, I've given this little speech to so many candidates where I told them, don't act like the typical business student or what you think a business student would be like, because we can totally tell whether you're being authentic or not. And that's also what makes the cohort of ESMT so great, that there aren't 50 times the same person. If we wanted 50 engineers, so if we wanted 50 people with a business management degree, then we could also get them, but that's not what we want. We want people who have different approaches, who have different experiences. And because of that, we don't really care if you have worked as a chef or as a flight attendant or as a business manager before. We just want to know why you think the MBA is the right step for you and what you could bring to the table. And as long as you're very interested, curious, and motivated, and you're not afraid to put yourself out there, and you're outspoken, then there's really no reason, there's really no clear guideline as of, like on a white paper, it would be difficult to pin down this person, but if you're motivated to do the MBA, then it definitely shows. To me, I always can tell the difference between somebody who is too enthusiastic and who really wants to get in, and somebody who is just thinking, yeah, you know what, why not? Everybody's doing it, so I might as well. To me, that's like, I can totally tell, and I think my colleagues can too.
Yes, I think we come back to the world of tonight, which is about motivation. Because when you have motivation, you have really clear what you want to do in the future and how can you use this opportunity to help you to achieve this goal. And when you have this clear mind, this clear path, you just put all your motivation, all your energy, all your wishes so in this product, and it's something magical. Things happen.
Totally, because also sometimes when people are very excited about their own plans, for example, then we are getting excited as well. Then we kind of are rooting for those candidates, and then we want them to get in as well. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where we want candidates who are so convinced of their goals, even if they're not there yet, but they can totally see it there, and it all makes sense. And we are totally then starting to root for them as well. And then we want them to succeed as well. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, really.
Well, yeah. And Tony, during this time that we were working with this project and with MBA, what do you see as the main transformation when you look at a student that just started the program and the students when the students finish 10 months after the beginning? What's the biggest transformation you usually watch in these students?
I would say the biggest transformation is that people have started to feel comfortable outside their comfort zone in like areas where they, first of all, didn't really see themselves, and maybe also where they reevaluate whether they shouldn't also tap into a different area professionally. It doesn't mean that they are totally overthrowing all the plans they had before, but it means that they're very much open-minded for other areas, and they're like, in retrospective, maybe finance wasn't so bad, or maybe this wasn't so bad, or I totally see now that this and this makes sense. And also what I feel like is always a very nice transformation to look at is that those students, I mean, before they are often used to be like high achievers at their work. Then they come to this program and they notice, there's a lot of other very smart people in here as well. And they become very humble, and they know that, of course, I can succeed on my own, but it's way more fun to succeed together as a group. And not only do I want to succeed as a group, but also, as much as I want to succeed myself, I want this person and this person to succeed as well. I want them all to do well and to graduate, for example, because I want to, in the end, it's such a more positive outcome even the more people succeed in their dreams. So it's, nobody has to lose in order for me to win. Everybody can win, and it's even a better thing. And that's always the transformation I see. In the beginning, people maybe tend to feel like, there's only so many cool jobs out there. Maybe I should use my elbows. And then they learn, I don't have to. If we work together, then there's plenty space for all of us. And I think that's a lesson that is good for everybody to learn. And that's always very, very visible for me to see the MBA students, that they become very humble and they become very generous. Also, they don't always have to be in the spotlight themselves. They very much know where they contributed without having to shout it from the roofs. They know that everybody has their very own sense of belonging, and everybody has their reason of being in this very cohort.
Yes, for sure. It's like the Chinese sentence which says, and if you want to go faster, go alone, but if you want to go longer, go together.
Yeah, so nice.
I think here
totally.
Yeah, this Chinese sentence makes really sense. And Tony, talking about a really interesting theme which students love to know and love to listen about is about scholarships. I know ESMT has not only a lot of opportunities to students in financial terms, but also ESMT the second biggest endowment fund in Europe. So what do you think that the students need to do? What do you think? In which case do you think that these scholarships are applicable? What are the goals of what usually ESMT looks for when the business schools find someone to give a scholarship in this theme?
Yeah. Yes, so ESMT Berlin offers partial scholarships to our students, because we do know that, of course, it's quite an investment to do an MBA. Mm-hmm. And those scholarships, they are merit-based, so they kind of depend on the very individual profile. So, for example, there are some that are a little easier to grasp. For example, there's the GMAT scholarship. If you have a certain score of your GMAT, let's say higher than 640, like higher than 700, then depending on your score, you get a certain scholarship. There is something that's called the early bird discount. This is if you apply very early on in the process, then you get the discount for this one. And then there's somewhat more individual scholarships. So, for example, there's one for people who have had, who have been in exchange, who have had experience in startups, either, for example, by founding one or just, in general. There's one for women in leadership. Then there's one depending on the region you're coming from. So those are the regional scholarships. And then there's, for those, however, we only have, I think, up to 2 per region. And there, you can imagine if you, for example, if you're Brazilian and you're getting, or you're aiming for the South American scholarship, of course, it's also going to be maybe a Chilean and some Argentinians, people who are applying for it as well. And then we always ask for essays in order to learn why you think you should be granted the scholarship. And then again, it's not really about, I've always had A+ and whatever, but it's more about getting to know as your profile, really. And then our admissions committee decides of which scholarship you would get. The very handy, I'm still here, right? Yeah. The very handy thing is that you don't need to specifically just apply for the scholarship by yourself, but it's actually part of the application process. You can just tick the box, and then our admissions committee makes sure that you will be granted all the scholarships that you would deserve. So, and then you actually, there's, for some scholarships like this GMAT and the early bird, for example, you could accumulate them. So you could then apply for several at once. And in the end, for example, they're all lit up. So you could, for example, score high on GMAT, also apply early on. And for example, if you speak German, because there's also a German language scholarship, then you would be able to collect those 3 scholarships. And this is already quite a good addition to the fee that you, to the tuition fee that you already have to pay. And so, something that's also important to know, sorry to interrupt you, and something that's also important to know for Berlin as a city is that it's a rather affordable city, especially if you're talking about capitals in Europe. I mean, next to Paris, London, and whatnot, Berlin is no comparison whatsoever. It's really, really cheap. I mean, compared to those countries, it's cheap. It's crazy.
No, it's more affordable than Munich, for example.
Definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
And this is especially true because often for those big capitals in Europe, often housing is the tricky part. And
yeah.
in Berlin, that's affordable. I mean, of course, it's also somewhat getting more expensive, but that's true for a lot of places. But it's nowhere near as crazy as it is in Paris or London or Amsterdam and so forth. So it's, yeah, come here while you can. Come here while it's cheap.
No, great. So it's great. I think if you're interested more about scholarships from ESMT, you can find more information on the website. On the website, they have a lot of information about scholarships. And for sure, as I always say to students, if you're good, if you're well prepared, if you are determined, you find your place. And no matter what, things will help you to get there. So just need to work on yourself. Just need to worry if you have or don't have money. Permanently, you have to focus on yourself. That's the main focus. You need to have not to get accepted in the business school. I think that Tony has the same perception.
Yes, definitely.
No. And Tony, I heard a little bit more about just to talk about this project, because this is a very interesting project related to the scholarship. You have a scholarship for the 30% membership or club, which helps or makes efforts not to enhance the participation, the female participation in the C-level of the companies. How is this scholarship usually distributed for female candidates?
That is a great question. For this, I'm actually not really in the know, because everything is scholarship related. That's actually always my colleagues from admissions who treat this part, but I'll be happy to double check this and to look into it, but I do not know specifics about this topic actually on top of my head.
No problem. Who is interested? You or who are a woman want to thinking, okay, maybe I'm facing some financial difficulties in order to get accepted in the SMT. Come to talk with us so we can afterwards talk with Tony and the whole team in order to find the precise information for it. That's definitely
Yes.
not. And
we've actually had the issue that there is, for example, a few funding options that are now struggling due to COVID, which is true for all the business schools. And we're very much working on getting even more possibilities out there, because we do know that right now is a great time to do further studies, but you also know that it's important to have some funding. And we will actually, as soon as we have more updates on this one, also publish it on our website.
Oh, great. And Tony, just to coming out to the end and talking more about, okay, we're talking about the business school. Is it in Berlin? Is located in a very, very beautiful building, which hosted in the past the government of the East Germany, and it's a really classical building. So but we're talking about the business school in Germany, and as we told earlier, students after the program and during the program, they have a social life and they get integrated into German society. What are the things, the events, the opportunities that the SMT promotes to the students, not to let them integrate it not only with the German society itself, the German market itself, but also with the German language, which is not so difficult. Come on.
I mean, I'm guessing it's not super difficult, but I'm always happy that I'm a German native, because I would not look forward to study it. Yeah, so actually, maybe the first question I'm going to answer is about the German language, probably. So for our MBA, we do have a pre and a post MBA program. And as part of this program, you actually can take German language courses if you wish. So there's the option to either before the program or after the program, you can learn German, no matter what level you're starting at. If you're starting at A1, that's great. If you're already at B2 and you want to improve, That's great. Totally independent on that level. At the same time, the whole program, of course, is in English. And for those of you who have been to Berlin before, maybe you know that it's not even too common to hear German on the street. I mean, sometimes it happens to me that I walk along the street and there's not a single person speaking German. So you totally get by with English. But that being said, of course, it always helps for a career afterwards to speak German. There's a lot of careers, especially in Berlin, where you can find jobs where you don't need any German at all. So English-speaking jobs are very much available throughout Berlin. There are certain industries like consulting where German is kind of important to know, at least some basic German. And that would then be the great chance to actually, after graduation, be part of the post-MBA program and to learn German. But even if it doesn't happen for you and you never learn any German, there's a lot of opportunities out there for jobs in English. For example, even at ESMT Berlin, our working language is English, and it's totally fine. And I have a lot of friends in Berlin as well who kind of get by with German. They don't really speak to a professional level, but they get by, and the jobs are all in English. And sometimes even it can be a plus as well to speak a different language. For example, let's say you speak English and also Portuguese, then that's another language that a German, for example, maybe can speak. So it can also be a very good advantage for you, a competitive advantage. But then again, I mean, it's also kind of part of the integration process to speak German or to learn German. And it's also kind of fun if you're able to order in a restaurant, in a bar, or to speak in the supermarket. So that's very nice. Talking about the events that ESMT provides in order for you to get to know people. In general, there's so many events that ESMT hosts. Of course, one of them being the MBA own events that we already talked about. So there's career fairs, but there's also team building events and so forth. However, there's also open lectures that ESMT hosts, and this is open for the whole public. And of course, for our students as well. So everybody can go there who wants to. And of course, nowadays it's kind of a strange time, but usually at ESMT, there's always something going on. There's always some guest speaker we invited. I mean, there were, I think it was 1.5 years ago when we had Obama speaking at ESMT Berlin. The Chancellor of Germany is very often there. Politicians in general. There's always something going on. There's like famous authors who read their books, and there's political discussions. That's always happening. And then also, I mean, with the alumni network, there's always, no matter if it's in Berlin, but even in Sao Paulo, for example, I remember that last year when I went to a fair in Sao Paulo, I talked to a former EMBA student, and she told me that she's always the one who hosts those alumni network events in Sao Paulo. And they exist all over the globe. And even if those are not happening in Berlin, we always make sure that people are connected throughout the whole world through this ESMT community. But even in Berlin, I mean, there's still so many former students that are living and working in Berlin now that we still have great connections to. And I know from a lot of students who are not German, who are not even European, but who've stayed on to live and work in Berlin. And who knows, maybe they're even going to grow out here, nobody knows. But it's up to 80% of our graduates who give it at least a couple of years to stay in Germany for work. And I think it also helps a lot that after graduation, you actually get 1.5 years of a visa extension in order to apply for jobs. So even if you graduate from ESMT Berlin, you have another 18 months to actually look for positions. But most graduates don't even need that long, because often it's like 3 months in and they find a position. But just so you know, you wouldn't have to leave the country right away, but you actually have way more time to explore this amazing city and country even more.
Well, great. Great, Tony. I'm really pleased to have you here tonight. I think it was a lovely night. And we talked so much. It's almost 2 hours talking. It just passed so fast. I'm glad
we're having fun. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna organize a physical event here in São Paulo. You, when all this pandemic goes away, I think 2 weeks we have the vaccine, we have a better news. Yeah, we have better news. But well, I'd like to let you the floor with final words for our audience tonight.
Perfect. Yeah, for those of you who have stayed with us for this whole time now, great, thank you so much. Again, don't be afraid to reach out with all the questions you may have, all the information. We're always happy to chat with you about everything. I mean, I can't stress it enough, but you're also just humans. And don't forget that, I mean, it always sounds so cheesy, but you only live once. If you think this is the right time for you to make something more out of your life, I mean, I guess 2020 with the pandemic and everything that's going on everywhere around the world has shown us that the best time to do something is now. And you can always develop. It's always important to develop. Don't think too much about what the others have. Think about what you have and what you can bring to the table and why you would be a perfect fit. Don't look too much to the right and left in terms of comparing, but do very much look to the right and to the left when it's about being generous and also working together. If at some point, I hope soon, we're able to travel again, we're always happy to welcome you in Berlin also for a campus tour, even if you're undecided yet to study. Don't be a stranger. Follow us on all the social media channels that you have in order to get an idea of what studying is like with us, because it would be sad if you come to ESMT and then it's nothing like you thought it would be. Yeah, just listen to your gut feeling. I'm totally biased because I love the city, but I'm not from Berlin, so I feel okay saying it. It's a great place to be. It's such an inspiring place, and it's mostly the people that make it. And it would be great to have you as a few of those people to make it an even better place for more inclusion and more open-mindedness, and just to be all great together in this amazing city, and maybe also in the business school that we call ESMT. And thanks so much for having me tonight. It was very fun.
Okay, great, Tony. For us too. So thank you everybody who watching us. This conversation will be placed in our social medias. We can watch it afterwards on YouTube, here on Instagram, also on Facebook, in our social medias. And well, anytime you want to recover and to watch again this lovely conversation, please feel free to watch it. And if you have any questions about consultancy and application process, feel free to reach us. Also, we are here to help you. Tony, thank you very much once again. I hope to see you soon back. And well, I hope to see you soon back also in another event, another conversation in the future. Thank you very much for tonight.
Thanks to you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye.